What's up guys, welcome back to another class preview. Today we're going to be going over the Fire Mage and kind of seeing the overall changes since of Warlords and kind of seeing how Fire Mages are placing so far in the Legion Alpha. So we're basically going to be going over the spellbook, touching over the talents, then looking up on our artifact weapon. So let's get into this. We do have a damage meter now down here. We did finally be able to get into this to be able to be used in Legion Alpha, so this will help kind of determine how much damage Fire Mages are doing right now. Starting up top, we do have Combustion. It does cost 110,000 mana with a 2-minute cooldown. Engulfs you in flames for 10 seconds, increasing your critical strike chance by 100% and granting you mastery equal to your critical strike stat. Unaffected by the global cooldown and castable while casting. So you can set this up just like our Blink with Frost or Arcane, like our Shimmer ability, but you can cast this while you're casting one of your spells. So if you're combusting, pop that, and you had a nice proc, whatever, get more procs. This is a very nice DPS cooldown, since all of our spells do work off of crits, giving you a bunch of damage. Next, we just still have Conjure Refreshment, conjure some food they can eat. Who doesn't love food? Next is Counterspell. Does cost 22,000 mana with a 24-second cooldown. Our Basic Interrupt does prevent them to be casting it at school for 6 seconds. Dragon's Breath is now just normal in the spellbook. It does cost 44,000 mana with a 20-second cooldown. Enemies in a cone in front of you take 63,000 fire damage and are disoriented for 4 seconds. Any damage will cancel this effect. So that was the basic spell effect. I do like the new addition to Combust, better than just the same old Dragon's Breath. Next is Fireball. It is a 2-second cast, throws a fiery ball that causes 35,000 fire damage. Very bland, but since most of our stuff does work off of us proccing our crits, it can afford to be kind of a bland spell. Mostly just our filler. We do have Flame Strike. It does have a 3.75 second cast. Calls down a pillar of fire, burning all enemies within the area for 46,000 fire damage and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds. Has a pretty large area. Hit these 3 dummies. Does have a long cast time, but does do quite a bit of damage. Next is Frost Nova. 30-second cooldown. Bless enemies within 12 yards of you for 5,000 frost damage and freezes them in place for 8 seconds. Damage may interrupt the freeze effect. We still do have Ice Barrier. Now this is nice just to give us some damage prevention, especially for questing or PvP. It is on a 25-second cooldown, shields you for a minute, absorbing 182,000 damage. While the shield holds, spellcasting will not be interrupted by damage. Definitely pretty nice. Next is Ice Block. It's a 5-minute cooldown, encases you in a block of ice, protecting you from all attacks and damage for 10 seconds. But during that time, you cannot attack, move, or cast spells. Ice Block does cause hyperthermia, preventing you to recast Ice Block for 30 seconds. Kind of working with one of our talents, which is called Snap, so you can't pair those up. Ice Flows is a talent we'll go over later. Infernal Blast is an instant cast with a 11-second recharge. Blast the enemy for 22,000 fire damage. This damage is always a critical strike, and this is unaffected by the global cooldown and available while casting. So, say I do get a proc. Crit, maybe. Okay, so I do have that. And I do notice that when I'm already casting my next spell, I don't want to stop this, and I do want to get that instant pyroblast. So, while I'm casting my next spell, I pop that, and then Infernal Blast, then able to get a triggered instant for Pyroblast with casting that Fireball at the same time. So it does have some nice chain, and it does seem slow for some seconds that we're not critting, but very intense and very fast paced and fun if we get the right procs. Next is Invisibility, 5-minute cooldown, turns you invisible over 3 seconds, reducing threat each second. While invisible, you are untargetable by enemies and lasts 20 seconds. Taking any action cancels this effect, so even blinking does cancel this. Meteor is a talent we'll talk about later. Phoenix Flames is artifact weapon we'll talk about later. We do have Polymorph, our basic CC. I do transform the enemy into a sheep, wandering around incapacitated for 50 seconds. While affected, the victim cannot take any actions, but will regenerate health very quickly. Any damage will cancel the effect. Only available on one target, and only available on beasts, humanoids, and critters. We do have our basic portals, and we do have Pyroblast next. It's a 4-second second cast. It does do 74,000 fire damage, but you don't ever want to be fully casting this. I mean, maybe to pull, but that's about it. The way it's gonna work is getting your right crits, pocketing that crit off of Hot Streak, and hitting that instant Pyroblast. Next is Scorch. It does have a 1.4 second cast. Scorches the enemy for 15,000 fire damage, but this is usable while moving. So if we do have a high mobility fight, this could be very useful. It will basically replace our fireball, even though it does less damage, but you can keep casting it while moving, getting those procs, and getting those instant pyroblasts. Next is Shimmer. It's kind of our talent, but our blink as well. Teleports you 20 yards forward, unless there's something in the way. This is normally a 15-second cooldown with one stack, one charge. This is normally blink, but we do have the Shimmer talent. Next is Slowfall. Slows a group member falling speed for 30 seconds, nothing new. Spell Steal. Steals a beneficial magical effect from the target. This effect lasts a maximum of 2 minutes. Next is Teleport. Teleport to the major city. Still have Time Warp. 5-minute cooldown. Warps the flow of time, increasing haste by 30% for all party and raid members within 100 yards. Lasts 40 seconds. Allies will unable to be affected by Bloodlust, Heroism, or Time Warp again for 10 minutes as well. Now moving on to our passive, we do have Critical Mass. Multiplies the critical strike chance of your Fireball, Pyroblast, and Scorch by 1.3. Now, this just helps our critical strike chance on those spells. I mean, those are really the only ones we really need, allowing us to get a lot more crits. So, next passive is Enhanced Pyrotechnics. Each time your fireball fails to critically strike a target, it gains a 10% increased chance, critical strike chance. This effect expires when your fireball critically strikes. So, I didn't strike there. I get an increased chance. Oh, I strike there. So, this is very useful and not having to stack as much crit, but crit is still very nice just because you can get more crit off of your pyroblast and all this, um, increasing your damage still by a lot, especially when you hit combust, and increasing our mastery by a lot as well. Next is hot streak. Getting 2 direct damage critical strikes in a row will make your next pyroblast or flame strike spell an instant cast and cause double the normal ignite damage. So basically this is what I've been talking about the whole time. Do work off of crit, and there it is. There's a hot streak. That big fire on the side of both your screens. And pop that. Instant pyroblast does give you more fire damage over time. Not overall the best damage. It does 3,000 every second, but still pretty good. Now moving on to our mastery, which is ignite. Your target burns for additional 12% over 9 seconds of the total damage dealt by Fireball, Infernal Blast, Scorch, Pyroblast, Meteor, and Flame Strike. If this effect is reapplied, the remaining damage will be added to the new ignite. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I just crit huge with my instant Pyroblast. Why would I want to apply another stack? It will still be added on to the next stack and still do the original damage. And last but not least, we do have Molten Armor. It does increase our critical strike chance by 15% and reduces all physical damage we take by 16%. Nice little bonus. I do like the fact that they still kind of have the old classic Mage armor buffs in the game, with Arcane having something similar to theirs, increasing their mastery and stuff, and Frost having their Frost armor, and kind of giving them a little bit more slows and all that, and obviously Fire increasing our crit. So I do like the fact that they still kind of have this in the game, but kind of more of a passive role now. Moving on to our talents. Starting at the 15 level talents, we do have Pyromaniac. So passive, casting Pyroblast while Hot Streak is active has a 10% chance to instantly reactivate Hot Streak. So this basically means, let's get a crit here. I mean, this is heating up right here, and this is Hot Streak. So we do have a 10% chance to immediately get another Pyroblast. This is only a 10% chance. It's still pretty nice when it happens, but it doesn't happen all that often. But still a good passive nonetheless. We do have Conflagration, another passive. Enemies affected by Ignite have a 10% chance to flare up and deal 9,000 damage to nearby enemies, therefore making this a very powerful AoE. You don't really have to worry about many AoE spells, since we do have an instant Flame Strike off of our heating up. That is basically our only AoE spell that we have to worry about. Giving mages, fire mages, a lot of AoE damage, since it's already spreading with Conflag, then having that Flame Strike come down all the time really makes this a very powerful tool. But next we do have Firestarter. Another passive. Your Fireball will always deal a critical strike when the target is above 90% health. His talent is not very good. You only have a tenth of the window. Um, Even in PvP, this doesn't last anywhere. But especially in raiding, this doesn't last very long. That first 10% health does not last at all, because you're bursting it already with a bunch of damage coming in. But who's going to pick this? Talent is not very good. You only have a tenth of the window. Even in PvP, this doesn't last anywhere. But especially in raiding, this doesn't last very long. That first 10% health does not last at all, because you're bursting it already with a bunch of damage coming in. But it is nice that you do get a 100% crit off of just one spell. I mean, that's really the only spell you really need it off of with fire, but it is kind of... I think it's a sucky talent. I don't like that they're adding these in. Anyone with half a brain wouldn't do this. I mean, it could be maybe very situational. Might be okay while questing. But we are going to be going through a full rotation as is. So your fireball will normally do more than 10% of their damage of their health in one thing, so you just get one fireball that's a crit while questing, so I don't really see the point. I could be just missing it, but who knows. Now we do have Shimmer, which replaces our blink. Does give us 2 charges with a 15-second recharge. Teleports you 20 yards forward unless there's something in the way, unaffected by the global cooldown, and able to be castable while moving. So, say if we're just facing this dummy and cast it, I'm still casting the same fireball. So, very nice addition. Does not always work when you're teleporting, say the wrong way. It still teleports you forward, so. Anyways, moving on, we do have Cauterize, another passive. Fatal damage instead brings you to 35% health, then burns you for 28% of your maximum health over 6 seconds. While burning, movement speed effects are suppressed, and you are able to move at 150% movement speed. This effect cannot occur more than 2 minutes. If this is a high damage fight and less mobility, I do see this being very nice in raids, especially helping out the healers. Say, since mages are squishy anyways, they do need quite a bit of healing, and they do sometimes go down faster than most other classes. But making this a pretty nice talent. Next we do have Cold Snap, another passive. Your Ice Block now has 2 charges and also heals you for 3% of your max health every 1 second. Now, since Ice Block lasts 10 seconds, this does heal you for 30% of your max health. So you can kind of have a nice heal, especially in PvP. This could be very good if we're especially doing like a 2v2 comp or something like that where we don't have a healer. Next up, we do have Mirror Image. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Creates 3 copies of you nearby, which cast spells and attack your enemies for 40 seconds. Now right now the damage of this isn't the best. I do kind of see this going up a little bit, but I mean it's still kind of cool to have 3 extra people around you casting fireballs and whatnot and giving you some extra damage. Kind of really fits into the lore. I do like the spell, but I don't think the damage is there, but it's still alpha. It'll probably change. We do have Rune of Power next. It has a 45-second recharge with a 1.4-second cast. Places a Rune of Power on the ground for 10 seconds, which increases your spell damage by 50% while you stand within 8 yards. You no longer have to be in it. You can be around it up to 8 yards, which is about here. So, still benefit from it quite a bit, and it does have 2 charges, increasing our damage by 50% for quite a bit of time, actually. Could be very useful in burst fights. Next up, we do have Incanter's Flow. Passive, magical energy flows through you while in combat, building up to 20% increased damage, then diminishing down to 4% increased damage, cycling every 10 seconds. Now this is nice just because it is constant damage. You always have 4% increased spell damage, and sometimes you'll get 20%. So this will constantly be flowing, giving you extra damage. I do like this just because you don't really have to worry about it, but I do see where it could fall off in some burst fights where Rune of Power could definitely pull ahead. Next is Blast Wave. It does have a 25-second cooldown, causes an explosion around the target, enemy or ally, so you can use this on say a tank, dealing 52,000 fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards and reducing their movement speed by 70% for 4 seconds. The primary enemy will take 100% increased damage. Now this is very nice. It does have a huge slow, only for 4 seconds though, but this could be very good in burst AoE fights, especially if we need to CC them. So, did do 90,000 damage to the primary target right there, but the other two ones did crit, so those did 93. Next we do have is Flame On, 30-second cooldown, immediately grants 2 charges of Inferno Blast. So if we're, especially if we're in combustion, getting those extra Inferno Blasts might be nice to get those extra crits, even though we already have a 100% crit chance. Kind of helps us get those all those Pyroblasts off and making those crits as well. So kind of have a nice synergy with that, but it's on a 30-second cooldown, so it's going to be happening 4 times more than combustion. Next we do have Controlled Burn. When you gain Heating Up, you have a 10% chance to instantly activate Hot Streak. So if I do get a crit here, this is our Heating Up. So sometimes they'll automatically just turn into instant Pyroblast. I do like this, just especially for just single target fights. Doesn't proc out a lot, but when it does, you do get some nice extra damage. Next talent row, we do have Icy Flows. Starts out as an instant cast with a 20-second recharge. Does have 3 charges. Makes your next mage spell castable while moving, unaffected by the global cooldown, and being able to be cast while casting. So, say if I am casting Fireball and I was like, oh shit, I need to move, I just pop this and I'm able to move, but once it stops. But if we are doing Pyroblast and I pop 2 of these, I'm still moving. So, kind of benefits from that. Nice little movement speed. Does kind of work well with Shimmer, so you don't really lose as much damage. when you're having to go around places. Next we do have Ring of Frost. It's a 1.8 second cast with a 45-second cooldown. Summons a Ring of Frost for 10 seconds at the target location. Enemies entering the ring are incapacitated for 10 seconds with a limit of 10 targets. I believe enemies leaving the ring as well are still incapacitated like before, so not much has changed here. Maybe a slightly lower cooldown, but still very nice for AoE or AoE CC. Next we do have Ice Ward. It's a passive. Just basically grants your Frost Nova 2 charges. So instead of waiting 30 seconds, you do get an extra charge every 30 seconds. So nice addition to some CC. Next we do have Living Bomb. Instant cast with 11-second cooldown. The target becomes a living bomb, taking 22,000 fire damage over 11 seconds. Then exploding to deal additional 18,000 fire damage to all to the target and all enemies within 10 yards. Other enemies hit by this explosion will also become a living bomb, but cannot spread further than this. So if we do have a bunch of ads that are going to be up more than 11 seconds or even 22 seconds, this could be a very useful talent to take and gives us quite a bit of AoE capability. So cast on the main target, basically return to our old DPS rotation. Once this explodes, it leaves the main target alone, but affects the 2 others and giving them living bomb, but it cannot affect past this. Therefore, it does expire on all targets after that. But say if I do cast on the main one, and once it expires, I can put it up yet again on the target and kind of chain this effect. And pop that, because obviously these will expire before this one does. So that expires, then that one expires, then they have Living Bomb again. Therefore, helping out our AoE quite a bit. Next we do have Unstable Magic. Fireball has a 30% chance to explode on impact, dealing 50% additional damage to the target and all enemies within 8 yards. Now this is pretty good for single target and AoE. I do like Living Bomb a little bit better if the ads are going to stay alive a little bit longer, but this is a nice passive since it just gives you a 30% chance that your fireball is going to do some damage to the main target and targets around it. Next we do have Flame Patch. Flame Strike leaves behind a patch of flames which burns the enemies within it for 36,000 fire damage over 8 seconds. Now, not the best damage, but it's still kind of nice. Still plays into the fact that you're a fire mage and you like to light things on fire. On the level 100 talents, we do have Kindling. Another passive, your Fireball, Pyroblast, Infernal Blast, critical strikes reduce the remaining cooldown of combustion by 1 second. Therefore, having more of a DPS cooldown up quite a bit. Since you are working off crit, this does reduce it by quite a lot. I mean, on average, you can reduce this to 130, a minute and 30-second cooldown from the original duration, which was 2 minutes. Next, we do have Cinderstorm. It does have a 1.4 second cast with an 8.4 second cooldown. Throws a spread of 6 cinders that travel in an arc, dealing 11,000 fire damage to enemies it hits. damage increased by 30% if the target is affected by your ignite. So, what this basically means, it's kind of hard to aim, but once we get used to it, it's no problem at all. So, we definitely want to ignite on the targets. So, say if we had ignite on all these, and cast this, it does travel in the arc, boom. If we are able to get close to the mob, can hit one mob pretty hard. So, boom. Therefore, all 6 cinders are going to be hitting that one target. Instead, they normally spread. You can cast this kind of wherever. You don't have to have a target for it. So, all about aiming, but once you get used to it, it shouldn't be that bad. I do like Meteor. As an instant cast with a 45-second cooldown. It does call down a meteor, which lands at the target location for 3 seconds, dealing 127,000 fire damage, split evenly among all the targets within 8 yards. It does burn the ground, dealing 34,000 fire damage over 8 seconds to all the enemies in the area. I do like this. It does kind of just fit into the DPS rotation. Since it is an instant cast, it kind of works off of all the fire mage's abilities. You don't really have to put much thought into it. Just kind of work on all of our others and just kind of get some extra damage. So, nice addition. I still like the meteor. Does have a cool spell effect. Therefore, kind of still giving you the lore fact that you are a fire mage. Anyways, moving on to our artifact weapon, which is this awesome sword. But we do have our main ability, which is Phoenix Flames. It does have a 30-second recharge. It does have 3 charges. Hurls a phoenix at the target that deals 87,000 fire damage to the target, and splashes 37,000 fire damage to nearby enemies. It does look like 3 pyroblasts if we hit the smell target, and just proccing all our ignite as well. So, and also hot streak. Boom. Boom. Very nice for AoE capabilities. Even single target does give you quite a bit of extra damage. Now, normally it's supposed to synergize with your pyro, or kind of almost take this up. Since hot streak, your next pyroblast or flame strike becomes instant, but it also does affect Phoenix Flames as well off one of these talents. So, Phoenix Reborn, targets affected by your ignite have a chance to erupt in flame, taking 11,000 additional fire damage, and also reduces the cooldown of Phoenix Flame. So this does proc a lot more, so don't worry, this is going to be up all the time. It's definitely in your main rotation. Since it does have 3 charges, it just keeps proccing, especially if we do have an AoE fight. Now for the next passives, we do have each consecutive critical strike you deal increases your critical strike damage by 5%. So if we are on a quote-unquote hot streak on crits, it does increase our critical strike damage by quite a bit, making that pyroblast even more effective, and also kind of helping out our combustion. Last but not least, we do have Blast Furnace. It's a kind of a lame passive, but it just gives you a little bit extra damage. Inferno Blast deals an additional 16,000 fire damage over 9 seconds. Nothing really big there. It's just extra little damage. Not really seeing the point to it, but I guess it could still be a filler. Anyways, it is still kind of a fun spec. I do like that it works off of crit. I always have, and these crits. Oh man. Holy crap. Really? Wow. I got a bunch of crits. Anyways, it is a fun spec. I do see most of the talents very useful, especially in situational fights or raids. We can kind of choose on what we want to be doing during that fight. Say if we need to CC a bunch of ads, say if we're fighting Sakathar, need to CC the Ghost, Blast Wave would be a very nice choice for us, slowing all of them down and also doing a quick bit of fire damage. You can even synergize this with Flame Patch or Living Bomb, since they are up for a little while if they are slowed. But I do like the fact that this could be a very slow build or a really intense build, and you just want to keep your critical strikes up as much as you can. So it is a very fun build. Plus you get to light everything on fire. Who doesn't love doing that? Anyways, thanks for watching. If we did like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If we do have any questions, please put them in the comment box below. There's going to be a lot more to come, so just stay tuned. And I will see you guys next time. Later.